The Battle of Ginnis was a minor battle of the Mahdist War that was fought on December 30, 1885, between soldiers of the Anglo-Egyptian army and Mahdist Sudanese warriors of the Dervish state. The battle was caused by the Mahdist blockade of the Ginnis Kosher fort, which British commanders hoped to relieve. The fighting resulted in a British victory. It is principally remarkable as the last battle fought by the British Army in red coats. Background to battle. The situation in 1884, a Sudanese religious fanatic, Muhammad Ahmed, also known as the Mahdi, planned and executed a series of attacks that left a British general, William Hicks, and thousands of ill-trained Egyptian soldiers dead at the hands of angry Arab rebels called dervishes or Mahdists. The Sudan was controlled by an Anglo-Egyptian administration, and it was decided that something must be done. General Charles Gordon was sent by the British government to be the Egyptian Army's Governor-General there. General Gordon and his aide, Colonel John Donald Hamel Stewart, carried orders from both governments to evacuate the town from the Mahdi. Instead, Gordon built up the town's defences and prepared for a siege. The British government sent two relief columns, the Slow River Column and the Mobile Desert Column, to rescue Gordon, Stewart, and the Egyptian garrison. After both columns won hard-fought battles, Kirbekan and Abu Klea, respectively, it was found that Stewart had been murdered by wandering Arabs north of Khartoum after his steamboat ran aground, and that, through the treachery of an Egyptian deputy commander, Khartoum had fallen and Gordon was killed. The columns retreated, leaving behind a series of forts. One of these forts was near the towns of Kosher and Ginnis, in northern Sudan, where a detachment of Cameroon Highlanders and Egyptian Sudanese troops from the 9th Sudanese Battalion were stationed. Thousands of Mahdist warriors, led by their provincial emirs, began raiding in the vicinity of Ginnis. They besieged the fort, and at one time the garrison's Gardner gun was dismounted by a Mahdist artillery barrage. General Evelyn Wood, the British commander in Egypt as well as the Sardar of the Egyptian army, became concerned about the siege and the raids and eventually ordered Major General Francis Grenfell and a force of 2 infantry brigades and a cavalry brigade were sent to rid the area of Mahdists. Grenfell's force, the 1st Brigade, consisted of the 1st Berkshires, the West Kent Regiment, the 2nd Durham Light Infantry, an Egyptian artillery battery escorted by 60 Egyptian troops, and a Royal Engineer detachment. This brigade was commanded by Brigadier General Butler. Colonel Weish's 2nd Brigade was composed of the Yorkshire Regiment, 6 companies of the Cameroon Highlanders, 152 Sudanese soldiers, 278 men of the 1st Egyptian Battalion, a mule battery of the Royal Artillery, in detachments from both the British Camel Corps and its Egyptian counterpart. 3 Gardner guns were also brought along by the 2nd Brigade. The Cavalry Brigade, led by Colonel Blake, was formed by another detachment of the Egyptian Camel Corps, a British Mounted Infantry Company, and 57 Egyptian cavalrymen. Some of the British troops were dressed in scarlet coats, however the Durham Light Infantry had left their red coats in Cairo before heading south, and were wearing khaki. The Egyptians were dressed in white or khaki. Some Egyptian officers preferred their traditional blue coat. British soldiers and officers wore white sun helmets while the Egyptians wore red fezzes. Battle. The opening clashes at 500 on the morning of December 30, 1885. General Grenfell and his troops marched out of their bivouac, which was located between the Ginnis Kosher fort and a smaller fort further south on the Nile. The 1st Brigade was at the head of the column, with the Camel Corps and 2nd Brigade following. The 2nd Brigade took up positions overlooking Kosher, while the fort garrison, seizing the opportunity, sortied and stormed the town. On the Nile, the steamer Lotus, which had mounted a Gardner gun, reported that a large body of dervishes was moving out of Ginnis in the direction of Grenfell's column. The Camerons and Sudanese, followed by the 2nd Brigade and covered by the Lotus, moved to investigate and counter this threat. The main battle as the 2nd Brigade fought through the palm groves near Ginnis. Dervish riflemen fired several volleys at the 1st Brigade. Although the firing was inaccurate, the smoke it created allowed spearmen to surprise the Camel Corps. In the ensuing skirmish, that detachment was forced to withdraw, but the Durham Light Infantry moved forward and repulsed the Dervish attack. As the 1st Brigade prepared to attack the main Dervish camp near Ginnis, the 2nd Brigade entered the town itself. Fighting its way through the streets, it took control of it. Nearby, the 1st Brigade's attack forced the Dervishes to retreat from their camp and pull back into the Attab defile. At this point, Grenfell ordered Colonel Blake's cavalry brigade to dislodge the Arabs in the defile, with the mounted infantry taking the Attab defile with a bayonet charge, and a general pursuit began. Blake halted his men, though, and the Dervishes fled to the desert. As the 1st Egyptian Battalion marched through Kosher, the men noticed that some dervishes, probably seeking shelter during the retreat from the town, had holed up, with their weapons, in a house. With a screw gun from the mule battery covering them, the Egyptians stormed the house. This encounter marked the battle's end. Consequences. Importance. The Anglo-Egyptian victory at Ginnis effectively ended the First Sudan campaign that had begun with the destruction of an Egyptian force near Fashoda in 1881. A few more campaigns, consisting mainly of defensive or relief operations, were fought until a large Anglo-Egyptian army, commanded by Sir Herbert Kitchener, a former intelligence officer, and General Sir Reginald Wingate, reconquered the Sudan in a massive campaign from 1896 until 1898. The main Mahdist resistance ended in the large-scale Battle of Omdurman in 1898.